Time to go live with the boss man at Roush Yates Engines. That is Doug Yates. Doug, it is so great to see you, man. And you guys are in such a performance-based business, but you guys are boasting the engine for the last champion and the engine for the last race winner. When you're in such a a business that's based on that performance right now, that's got to be a real good sign.
Yeah, John, we're fortunate to have great teams like Team Penske and the other guys we supply engines for, the Roush Fenway and Front Row, and most of all, the great support of Ford Motor Company. So they've been behind us from the beginning when my dad and I had Robert Yates Racing, and when we put together our partnership with Jack Roush and formed Roush Yates Racing Engines. Ford Motor Company has been behind us the whole time. So their support and encouragement, and everybody here at Roush Yates Engines, we have 230 employees now with the engine piece and the other manufacturing activity we do. But it takes a lot of great people and a lot of great teams, and we're really blessed to be part of this NASCAR and part of this great sport.
Doug, I read some pretty cool quotes from Jack Roush when you guys got together, when your dad and Jack got together, that Jack and your dad were kind of going at each other competitively for a while. And then when you got together, you got the best of two worlds. How much changed for you guys and the whole Ford engine department when Roush and Yates got together?
Wow, it was, Jack Roush was racing his Fords, and my dad and myself were racing at Robert Yates Racing and trying to beat each other probably more than anybody else, which was good to a point, very competitive. But also we saw the future was changing. In 2003, we knew that the landscape was changing. Toyota was going to come in. They were going to do things different, and we wanted to get stronger. And with the encouragement of Ford Motor Company, said, hey, let's do this together. So it was true. My dad and Jack didn't really care for each other that much. They were super competitive. But Jack and I met in the early 90s and did a project together. So we had a little bit of time together. And so at the end of 2003, we met. We talked at Atlanta back when it was almost one of the last races of the year. Went to Jack's motorhome on a Saturday afternoon in between practices, and the three of us met. And basically, Jack looked at my dad and said, hey, look, we've had our differences, but I really like Doug, and I believe in his future, and I think we should put our deal together. So at that point, we started working towards forming Roush Yates Racing Engines. At the end of 2003, Jack actually won the championship with Matt Kenseth that year, but decided that this was the right thing for him to move his effort to Mooresville, partner with us, and try to build the best Ford racing engine. So they had very different philosophies on building engines. My dad and I were always about making the most horsepower. Some people even accuse us of our cars were kind of a glorified engine stand, which we took a lot of pride in. And then Jack was really about the best performance for the car. So what that meant is running the engine hotter, turning it more RPM, just doing different things than what we were doing. So when we combined those two efforts in 2004, it was really a special time. We made a lot of progress combining those two philosophies. It was not easy. We sat here at this desk that we're talking at right now, and my dad and Jack would sit across from me and compare notes and debate what was the right thing for the engine or what the right thing for the car was, and get a piece of printer paper out and said, this is the clearances I want on these cylinders, and go back and forth. And so, a lot of people at our company said, hey, there's a lot to do. Why don't we just run your dad's engines for a while and his cars and Jack's in his cars? And we said, no, right away, we're going to have a Roush Yates engine at Daytona. And everybody got behind that effort, went to the Daytona 500, sat on the front row with Jack's car with Greg Biffle and my dad's car with Elliott Sadler. And that was really a proud moment for me to help bring that together. And then went on to have a lot of success and win the championship in 2004 with Kurt Busch. And it wasn't easy, but we had great cars and great support and great people and a lot of effort. And that's how Roush Yates was formed.
Well, Doug, I think it would probably be an understatement to call your dad incredible. I love talking to him anytime possible. The knowledge and the intelligence and the innovation. What was it like growing up with Robert, your dad? How cool was it, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that, John. I mean, he loved people. He was the son of a Baptist preacher that just loved hot rodding cars, and But he appreciated people. But growing up with him it was tough. I mean, we worked all the time, whether it was around the house, the chores, cutting the grass. He was or going to the shop with him as a young boy when he worked for Junior Johnson. He'd come home for dinner. We lived on the same road as Junior and Flossie there at his race team right down the road, and he'd come home after work, grab dinner, go back to work. He did all his machine work during the day. At night, he liked to assemble engines, and I would go to work with him and hang out with him as a 5-year-old kid. And then later, when he moved back to Charlotte, when we moved back to Charlotte, worked at Diagard as a young kid. My job was to clean the shop on Saturdays and Sundays, top to bottom. So when they got back from the racetrack, they were ready to go again for the next week. So eventually got to tear down engines and wash parts and home blocks. But we worked, and that's we worked a lot, but we enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun together, spent a lot of time together. If we weren't going to church, we were at the shop working or driving to a racetrack and spending time together that way. So a lot of special moments. And then as we went on, he encouraged me to go to school and get an engineering degree, and that turned out to be a great decision. And then when he bought the team in 1988, I was in college at NC State. My mom called and said, "Hey, would you come back and work for the team?" When I graduated in 1990, came back. Robert Yates Racing at the time was, we had Davey Allison and Texaco Abilene as a sponsor and Ford Motor Company. And we were on a mission to go win races. And it was a lot of fun.
So, Doug, I know the whole world of racing since those days, since those early 2000 days, have changed so much. But what has changed in your realm? What has changed in your world in terms of building these engines, making these horsepowers? And obviously, the job hasn't changed any in terms of how much you guys have to work. But has that changed a lot? Is the idea still the same in terms of making a durable engine that has a lot of horsepower?
Yeah, John, it's changed tremendously. When I started in 1990, we owned 3 engines. We had 1 dynamometer. There was 5 or 6 people in the engine shop in total, maybe 15 on the team, single car team, and so we just tested, and we really just worked hard. I tried to always be innovative, but it was a 7-day-a-week mission just to get to Daytona and race for the Daytona 500. But probably the biggest change throughout the years are, back then we had 1 car to build engines for. We went to 2 cars in 1996 with Dale Jarrett, which turned out to be fantastic, with a Ford Quality Care car winning the Daytona 500 right out of the box, and then ultimately onto the championship. And then we started building more and more Ford engines, building pretty much everybody except for Jack's engines. And what that allowed us to do is when we built this facility here in Mooresville, we're sitting in a 75,000 square feet state-of-the-art engine shop that has test engineering capabilities, design, development, simulation to predict engine performance. But probably the biggest change of all was the testing capability. Back when we were first starting, we had 1 dynamometer a water brake dyno. It was probably a $20,000 dyno at the time. And today we have, a handful of AVL transient dynos that are, $5 to $10 million test cells.
Wow.
That you can do anything on. Obviously you do your engine development on there. It's very accurate. You can measure, lots of sensors. We use that information for simulation. But once we find a combination we like, we can load that engine up on that dynamometer, and then we run a full race. You pick a racetrack you want to go to, like Michigan this weekend, a driver profile, because now we have all the data from the cars. And you go run the race, and then you take the engine apart and make sure that it does everything that we predicted it to do. So the testing capability today has changed tremendously. And probably the other piece that has changed through the years is the manufacturing capabilities that we have in-house. Back then, every set of cylinder heads was made from scratch. Every engine was a little bit different in performance, and you tried to build them as close as you could, but you just didn't have the machining or the manufacturing partners that we have today that make these parts so precisely. So the tolerances were not as close as they are today, and obviously we've refined that. But back in 1991, NASCAR said, "Hey, Robert, you can't have that cylinder head because it doesn't look like all these other Ford heads. And by the way, it's about 50 horsepower better than anybody in the field. And so at that, and we want you to give every Ford team that head, submit it to NASCAR, but we also want you to make every head." And that's it was a C3 head. A lot of people in the industry refer to the Yates head. That was a Robert Yates head. And my dad looked at me and says, "How are we going to make these?" Back then, it took about 3 months to make a set of cylinder heads. He said, "I got an idea. What if we buy a CNC machine?" And myself included, looked at my dad and said, "What are we going to do with that?" And one of the guys, a very famous machinist we had, his name was James Luter. He'd done everything, worked in the Navy shipyards. He could make anything. He said, he looked at my dad and he said, "Boy, that thing's going to put you out of business." And and so we carried on. We bought that first CNC machine. And today we have a manufacturing facility, about 135,000 square feet of manufacturing capabilities, that we make cylinder heads, all of our valve train components, all of our accessories, as well as next gen parts and aerospace and defense parts. So that one moment in 1990 is, due in large part to a lot of things we do today, not just building engines, but also manufacturing components for other people in other industries.
Yeah, Doug, I'm glad you brought that up. First of all, on two separate occasions, you were kind enough to invite us into your facility, and I was absolutely blown away. I thought it was about the coolest thing I'd ever seen, and we learned so much by being in there. But I'm glad you mentioned doing some other stuff, Doug, because that's something I wanted to ask you. A lot of teams, we heard, when things changed in NASCAR, that some teams were farming out their paint booths. They were producing stuff for other industries. And if I'm not mistaken, you guys did a lot of that, didn't you, for aerospace and things of the like, because you had the technology.
Yeah, absolutely. When we moved in this building, we had our CNC equipment here, and we very quickly ran out of space, and so we moved into another facility, 30,000 square feet, and then we ran out of space there, and so what we decided to do is, hey, we have great people, great capabilities. We could do this for other industries. So we expanded into defense was the very first industry that we diversified into, making the radio devices that go in Humvees all over the world. So that was a big learning for us and eye-opening. It's like we can make really high precision parts, and there's a big need in the U.S. for great manufacturers, and we want to be amongst those manufacturers. So that was a start. During COVID, the manufacturing facility and activities turned out to be great because racing kind of took a pause. We were deemed essential based on all the military components we were making at the time, and really kept the company going and gave us activities to do. We made shields and water jet, face shields and all those other things. But this industry, NASCAR, has so many skilled people and so much talent to offer to other industries. The challenge is just trying to blend that into your normal racing activities. And I think we've done quite well at that. It's in a separate facility. It's dedicated. We're ISO certified and ITAR registered. So there's a lot that goes into it. And, we're always trying to build a stronger company, trying to provide opportunities for our employees to grow and flourish. And that's what we've done with Roush Yates Manufacturing Solutions.
So, Doug, it seems like these days, whether it's teams, engine builders, or really anybody involved, a shareholder in the industry or stakeholder, that NASCAR seems to be listening to what people want and what people say. From the perspective of the engine builder, what would you want from NASCAR to be able to change that you think would improve the product?
Well, John, the biggest thing we're hearing right now, you hear it from our fans, you hear it from our drivers, you hear it within the industry, and NASCAR is now starting to talk about in our meetings is like, what would it take to have more horsepower? As an engine builder, it's that's really exciting, right? Because we've gotten to where we're at. Obviously, we have a 510 horsepower package. At Daytona, Talladega, Atlanta, the power levels for the intermediate short tracks and road courses is somewhere around 670 horsepower. And all that is an airflow limited based on the tapered spacer. It really, that's what controls how much ultimately how much power you can make. I mean, you can make as much power as you want. NASCAR provides those taper spacers, and we work hard to fill that curve and make as much power as we can. So the talk of having more power is exciting. I think that that's something that NASCAR with John Probst and his team at the R&D Center are working hard with the OEMs and the engine builders and everybody involved to see what's possible there. So at the end of the day, we just love NASCAR. We love whatever power level we want to go to the track with advantages, try to win those races and work with our teams to get that. But I think right now the hottest thing going is what would it take to have more power? There's a huge debate on what that is. Is that 750 or is that 900 or more? I don't know. I think that those things are all the topics that we'll discuss, but that's probably the hottest thing in our world today.
Doug, I don't know if people quite really understand the racers of the world and how they work, what your work schedule can be, how long it can be, and how hard you have to work to keep up with other people that you're racing against. But is it the competition that keeps you going after all these years? Because you guys have a whale of a travel schedule, an incredible work schedule, and if you're not fully in it, it can get you. But is that what keeps you going? Is the competition and that part of this whole job?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this is we get to compete every Sunday, and we get a report card every Sunday, and
yeah.
and we want to make sure that we're doing our homework and putting the work in, and really trying to find those advantages to go win those races. And this year at Talladega, we just captured our 200th Cup points win with Austin Cindric
Wow.
and Team Penske. Wow. That's something that at Roush Yates. So it's something I'm very proud of, excited. For our team, we had a lunch and celebration about a week ago for that. Austin brought the flag, and we have that in our facility. So, it's really a lot about how do we win that next race, and we love being able to compete in this sport. And probably things for me, I have 4 kids, but I have 2 daughters that just graduated high school, and one of them is super into racing, and the excitement of winning that race. Getting that high five and getting a call from your mom and your uncle and text and just the team, and it's really all I've ever known, but it is exciting, and it's way different than I've never had another job, but I can a lot of my friends come to the races and they're excited about it as well, and it's really just cool to be part of the sport. My dad and I talked about it growing up. It's like, man, just want to be part of the club, or in the amongst the Pettys and the Wood brothers and the Earnhardts, and we just want to earn our way and earn our respect, and hopefully we've done that through the years, and we want to keep going into the future.
So, Doug, you're one of those guys, especially with the last name like Yates. People know what you do for a living, and you're around the racing, around the tracks. It just seems to me like this season there is a really, really good, really positive buzz around these racetracks and a good feeling there. It just seems like it wanes. It comes in ebbs and flows over the years. But it seems like right now there's a great upswing. Now, the tangible things are going up. You're seeing higher TV ratings. You're seeing more sellouts and more rear ends and seats. But do you get a feeling right now that there's just a real good buzz around NASCAR?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think a lot of the credit goes to Jim France, Lisa, Ben Kennedy, their vision, and Steve Phelps, Steve O'Donnell, all of the leadership team in NASCAR has been open and willing to try new things. You think about it. We went to the LA Coliseum and put on a stock car race. I mean, who would have ever thought that would happen? Bowman Gray was a great event, coming back to the roots of NASCAR. Rockingham, I was so excited about Rockingham. My daughter and I didn't really have a lot to do on Easter weekend. We went down there and camped out for the weekend. In fact,
nice.
I think that was one of the greatest things for me, the nostalgia of driving down there, thinking about the memories of riding down there with my dad, racing many, many years ago, and the success that we had there. And to be able to have her at 18 years old, she'd never been to Rockingham. And we had a great time on the way home. We were listening to Sirius XM radio, listening to you, taking callers. And it was really positive, I thought. And so I think NASCAR's willingness to try things. The close competition, the fierce competition we have today. I mean, the World 600. I mean, Charlotte was an amazing race.
It was.
And, William
No
Byron led a lot of laps, but there was so much passing. I mean, you think about the battle between him and Denny Hamlin, Ross coming on there at the end. I mean, as a racer, normally I would be disappointed. We didn't have a very good night. But as a fan, I'm like, this is awesome. And I was actually, pretty excited about it because I'm a race fan. And we all want to see great races. And so there's so much good stuff going on right now. I just applaud and thank the France family for what they're doing, and just continue to try new things. I mean, the Amazon broadcasts, to me, I watched the pre-race show and the post-race show, and streaming is one part of it, but the fresh energy to me is really the win with the Amazon piece. And I think that it challenges the other networks to continue to work on their program, and competition is good on the track, and it's good on the TV. And I think, there is a lot of positive energy in the sport. You can tell I'm excited about it, and looking forward to what's next for NASCAR.
So, Doug, when you guys go to the racetrack, I think sometimes, I like the fact that you brought up the TV, because we always kind of joke in TV that there's no real barometer. There's no stopwatch. People are either going to like you or they're not going to like you. And therefore, it becomes so subjective. But when you're objective out there in your business, is that something you really like about that? Are there pros and cons, or mostly pros about knowing that? You mentioned earlier, you called it a report card, and I love that, because it is. You guys find out right away what you've done. There's a stopwatch and there's a finishing order that tells you guys right away how you did.
Right. Yeah, I think our world is pretty clear, and coming from college, I kind of always related to a final exam. We have a final exam every Sunday, and the whole world is going to know. We're not going to be able to change the grade for our parents. So the whole world is going to know how we did, and that's the pressure that we feel and the privilege that we had to go compete and try to win those. I think that's the same thing, TV, obviously the ratings and a lot of different metrics today with social media and younger audiences or current audience, so there's a lot of things out there that I'm definitely not as up to speed as you are, but I think that, I think the sport's on a good trajectory. I think the networks are doing good, and I still have great memories of you guys, pre-race shows and things like that. And I love what you're doing right now. And I think just continue to try things, continue to mix things up, and fans will respond. And this is a tough fan base, as you know. I mean, it's racers are racers. Race fans are racers. I mean, they want to win too, and they know what they like, and some of them differ in those opinions, right? But at least if you're getting that response, it's sometimes good press or bad press. Just press is good, right? And keep that fan engagement going, and I think we're heading in a good direction.
Well, Doug, I never got a chance to tell your father this, but I want to tell you this now because we have the opportunity. I don't want to miss it. You guys at Roush Yates, a lot of your employees, you and your father especially, dating back to the mid-'90s, you guys were always open, always friendly. You guys meant a lot to my career with the guidance you gave me and the friendship and everything. And Doug, I just really, really appreciate it.
Oh, that means so much. Thank you for saying that. I know my dad will be smiling right now, John. He loved hanging out with you, spending time with you, and so do we. And we look forward to doing more of this in the future. I did want to tell you that we put together a heritage center to honor my dad, his team, Robert Yates Racing, Roush Yates with our partner Jack Roush, and I'd love to invite you to come up and see that.
You got a deal.
Really never done any of that stuff, and I'd love to have you there sometime in the near future.
Well, Doug, we got to talk more often. Love the chat, man. Really enlightening, and I'm sure the fans will love it as well. And we also want to see more Fords in victory lanes, and also hoisting that championship trophy in the end.
There you go. That's we're going to Michigan, one of our favorite places, trying to win that Heritage Trophy for Ford Motor Company, and looking forward to hopefully having another shot to compete for a championship at Phoenix this year.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.